When we begin our planning, there are a couple of pieces that are already in place. To begin with, what we are to teach comes from the state, and this is in the form of the text, or the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. When we teach, the text has been lined out for us in a local document called a scope and sequence. It's just simply divided into units and tells us when we'll teach each one of the texts and which ones will be bundled together in a unit. Now that we have the what we're going to teach and the when we're going to teach it in place, we get to the fun part. This is the how it's going to be taught. This part is about individual instruction and knowing your students and how best to teach them. As a PLC, we'll be looking at the unit, and then we'll break that down individually and what you feel comfortable with in your classroom. To help make planning a little easier, we've created an instructional planning guide. And this guide has two sides. On one side, we'll be basically looking at unit plans. And this will be the part that's done in the PLC. On the other side, we kind of look a little bit more at your individual planning. So we're going to begin by identifying the desired results. We want to break the text down and look at exactly what they say. The next thing we want to do in step 1 is to look at what would this look like. What does this mean? What are the essential understandings, the guiding questions? So to do this, I'm going to draw a frame, and we want to think about what would this look like. So once we've determined what students should know, understand, and be able to do, we've determined what it would look like. Now we're ready to determine the acceptable evidence. How will we know if students have achieved the desired result? This is where in your PLC you will write your summative and your 6 weeks common assessment items. These are just ideas to get you started. Since you've already broken your text down and you've already met as a group and determined what this looks like and how it will be assessed, we're now ready to actually plan for instruction. You'll be asked to do a little homework before the meeting. It should only take you 10 or 15 minutes to complete it. And what we're doing here is we're trying to kind of divide up the workload and just bring your piece back to the meeting and report out on it. So the jobs will be things like the vertical alignment. If this is your task, you would simply go to the unit planning guide, and at the bottom you could look at the previous grade level text and the next grade level text and kind of decide the vertical alignment piece. When you come back, you would have about 2 minutes each to share out, because we would want this entire process to take less than 10 minutes. You've probably noticed that we haven't planned for instruction yet. You would turn this over on the other side as you're having these conversations with your PLC, and you would begin to make notes on this side about what you would like for your lessons to look like in your classroom. The steps are numbered, and you can see that it starts in the middle with your text breakdown, which of course comes straight from what you've already done in the PLC. And then the essential understandings, the guiding questions, again, straight from the PLC. Vocabulary, you've already talked about in your homework. And on number 4, it says visual representation. If you're ELA, you would think about what text you're going to use. If you're in math, you might think about the manipulatives that you want to use. Maybe in social studies, you want to be sure you include not only a map, but a video clip. And you just thought about the instructional tools that you might use. We titled this number 5 section, Memorable Moments. You might want to think about it as instructional experiences. How are you going to teach this? What are kids going to be doing? Are you going to use a thinking routine to introduce something? How are you going to get your students talking? How are you going to differentiate? Or what else will you use? Again, just a checklist of ideas to get you started. Next, we have evidence of learning. Now, we know that we have already, in our PLC time, looked at our acceptable evidence. Our thought here for an individual lesson is that you might think about formative assessment. How are you going to know if kids are getting it? This is not something that has to be completed. This is not a requirement that you'll turn in. This is simply a tool to help you as you plan for instruction in your classroom.